The weather affects everything, from how we feel to how we live. But what's really going on above us? Each week on Atmospheric Insight, we dig deeper into the science of weather and the stories it shapes. This is Atmospheric Insight, where science meets the sky.
Welcome back to another episode of Atmospheric Insight. I'm meteorologist Adam Epstein.
I'm meteorologist Riley O'Connor.
Riley, it's been an interesting week for us here in California.
Mm-hmm.
The fog has taken over.
It has taken over.
Yeah, finally.
And when you talked about being sucked in the fog, I mean, for days, I got that experience finally.
Right. Yeah, we've talked about this in the past, how people that have lived in Sacramento, say 20, 30, 40 years ago, before the turn of the century, like this was normal. You'd be stuck in the fog for 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks without ever seeing sunshine.
Yep.
There's some interesting reasons behind that, which we have some time to get into. I think I was talking to you about this too as well. Okay, so like 30, 40 years ago, air pollution was a lot worse here in the valley, and a lot of wood burning, a lot of leaf burning in the valley. So that put more particles in the air. In order to get fog, you need cloud condensation nuclei. And those little particles are that nuclei. Now the air quality is much better. So
it's a good thing.
Yeah, it's harder for fog to form. That is a positive. Not so positive is also you need cold air to squeeze out that moisture and condense it. Well, our climate is trending a little bit warmer. And in dry years, when it's there's not moisture in the air and it's warmer, you're just not going to get that fog. So one positive, the others,
Right.
But let's talk about cold a little bit, because back in your old stomping grounds, polar vortex coming through. All right, so a little high-level explainer here. Large area of cold air aloft that typically spins above the poles. It's an area of low pressure. And if conditions are right, the jet stream gets weaker. This is the polar jet. And that's like the fence you can think of, right, between that very cold air and everything else. That fence, kind of breaks down and that cold air bleeds out. Riley, you have experience with this, no doubt, living in Minneapolis.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, I have had temperatures, like the actual air temperatures, at least 20 to 25 below, where the wind chills were about 50 below.
Whoa.
So it was brutal. Something that I so glad I don't experience anymore, because really you just can't do anything about it. You just can't do anything at all outside. You have to, I mean, you still have to go to work. You still have to, especially being in the news business or being a meteorologist, you have to go into work. It's brutal. It's just numbing.
So you're saying the actual temperature was 25 or so below?
Yes. And you wake up in the morning, and I remember this was also and I lived in Iowa too and worked there. My mom came to visit, and it was one of the coldest Decembers that we had. And she was like, "This is miserable."
Yeah. I mean, I don't blame her. That sounds pretty rough.
Yeah.
And then you just add like a tiny breeze. And it's interesting the way wind chill works. It's not a direct relationship. It's kind of like a logarithmic scale. So a little bit of wind when it's kind of cold outside doesn't make much of a difference. But a little bit of wind when it's 25 below, and all of a sudden, like you said, it could feel like 40, 50 below. I mean, that.
Yes.
I can't imagine.
Well, and that's when frostbite sets in, and you can be out there for just a matter of minutes, if not sometimes, seconds, and you can get frostbite if your skin is exposed to it.
Right. It's dangerous.
Yeah, it is.
So we have this event happening right now. So I want to give you an idea of exactly what's occurring. So the polar jet, it slows down sometimes. And the reason for that slowing might be a bit counterintuitive, because when we talk about our changing climate, we're talking about warming conditions. And then people always point to the extreme cold outbreaks that happen across the northern tier of the country and say, well, it's not getting warmer there, but there's a catch. So the jet stream, like we talked about, is like that fence. It's created by that temperature gradient. If you have very, very cold air at the poles, and then relatively warmer air outside of the poles, it's a strong temperature gradient. That fence is fortified. But if the poles get warmer, that temperature gradient isn't as strong. The fence isn't as strong, and it starts to break down. So it's actually warming at the poles, which allows that cold air, still colder than what we experience, but warmer what they expect, to bleed out into the United States, right? And that's what we're seeing here happen in Minneapolis, Wisconsin, the Dakotas. Oof.
Yeah.
It's really tough.
It's interesting, Adam. I was thinking about this too. I remember, being a kid, and you can reflect on this too. You didn't hear the term polar vortex,
Mhm.
really.
Yeah.
You had Arctic outbreaks, you had that. I'm trying to really kind of dive in and think about when that really started to come into play. Like what year? Do you remember when that really started, that name?
I would say less than 10 years
Yeah.
ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, less than 10 years ago. When I was working in Maine, a cold place, right? I think the coldest wind chill I ever felt personally was about 20 to 30 below.
Okay.
So not
Nothing.
as bad as
Nothing.
you. Yeah, it's like
Just
walk in the
kidding.
park for you. It's funny if the temperature got to 32 for a high in the
Mhm.
winter, we're like, oh, it's a warm day. People are wearing shorts, like
I
going
definitely
out
did that.
t-shirts, right? It's funny how you get used to it.
Yeah.
Anyway, but
It,
yeah, polar vortex is something that we talk about in Maine when it would occur,
mhm,
but it's become more popularized, right? I'd like to think, a hunger for science in the
mhm,
public.
mhm,
So, I mean, my broadcast style is very much educational. I try
mhm.
to bring those scientific terms, those
Yep.
meteorological terms to the masses to get people familiar with them.
Yeah.
So,
And I think what's interesting too about, polar vortex and, bringing the education in, it's always there,
yeah,
right? It's not something that just comes down. It's like, oh, the polar vortex is getting us. It's always there, but you have waves, and it
right.
kind of, it weakens, it comes down, which is almost
Fluctuates.
counterintuitive of what you think. If you think of a strong polar vortex, you're like, oh, it's a strong polar vortex. We're going to get really cold air. But a lot of times it's a weak polar vortex that sends those dips down. It
Exactly.
weakens. So
Right.
it's almost opposite of what you think.
If the polar vortex is strong, there's no reason for it to leave,
Yeah.
right? That fence is fortified.
Yep.
But when that temperature gradient decreases, that's when it bleeds out. And this is a look at what the temperatures are forecast to be overnight into Thursday morning.
Mm.
And now that you told me the coldest weather you felt, Minneapolis doesn't seem so bad.
Doesn't know
Right? It's all right.
it's all right.
Four
It's
below,
tolerable.
that's nothing.
I mean, the kids still go out and play in winter jackets.
Right. Yeah. Nothing's getting canceled because of that.
No.
All right. And this Ask Adam, I filmed it a couple weeks ago. We've had some technical difficulties on Atmospheric Insight. So I start off by saying it's a nice fall day. This was before all that fog. And I just wanted to, chat a little bit about what's been going on. Let's take a look.
It's a nice fall day, so I figured let's take this Ask Adam outside. Got a good question from Chris Heaton today. He asked me what are the three biggest surprises as a meteorologist on the West Coast, having grown up on the East Coast. And the first thing that comes to mind is definitely snow. For example, when I was working in Maine before I got here, it said forecast 4 to 6 inches of snow. Well, if we got 3 or 7, I'd hear about it. I mean, people were upset. But now come to the West Coast and we're talking about snow in the Sierra and the mountains. The amounts are much higher, forecasting 4 to 6 feet of snow. It's such a wide range, and everyone's just like, okay, great. I mean, there's just so much more acceptance for what people will allow for their range for snow forecasts here, and that's just part of mountain forecasting. The second thing that really caught me by surprise is the wildfire smoke. On the West Coast, it's just a different scale for wildfire season. And you can have smoke that completely busts a forecast. And that's happened to me before, thinking that the smoke's going to clear out, but instead stays dense. And instead of getting a forecast high of 70, it's just 60 degrees. And the third thing that surprised me is actually just the seasons in Northern California. Coming from the East Coast, I've been to San Diego before, I've been to the LA area, and that was my impression of California as a whole. Obviously, that is so incorrect. So the more I research, the more I experience Northern California, the more I realize there's a lot of variation and a diverse climate here that I get to enjoy as a meteorologist, especially in the winter. It can get boring in the summer for sure when it's just sunny and hot every day. But there are times when I'm driving around Northern California, I'm thinking this could be the Northeast if it wasn't for like the random palm tree here or there. So those are the three things that are the biggest surprises: snow forecasting, smoke impacts, and the seasons.
And yeah, I bring up the smoke.
Mhm,
Fog is the same exact way.
mhm,
If you expect that fog to break, you'll have a temperature much warmer than if it stays overcast.
mhm.
And that's something we've been dealing with and grappling with, trying to figure out because the models are treating this
Oh,
fog so poorly. I
yeah,
mean,
they are.
it's tough.
Off several days in the temperature. I mean, you go back and you're like, okay, I need to train way down.
Right. And it's kind of scary. We use models as like a guide,
Mhm,
right? Without them, we wouldn't be able to know what's happening.
mhm.
But with them, they still make these mistakes. And if you see like all the models are trending with highs around 60 degrees, and then to say, well, I don't see that happening. It looks like the fog is going to stay. But to write 48 degrees, 12 degrees off from all the models, that's a scary thing to do, to go out on a limb.
It is. And you kind of you look at it too, when you're forecasting, you write it down, you're like, okay, am I going to go with this number? Am I actually going to go with this number? And then you go with it and you're like, okay, I did it. And then, even the temperatures are even cooler. I think the one day was our high was 46.
Yeah,
what was it, right?
I think yes. So over the weekend, it was in the 40s, right?
Yep.
And on Saturday, we actually made one of those interesting records, the record lowest maximum temperature, so the coldest high for that date. Interesting stuff.
Yeah, it is.
All right, we're going to take a break. We'll be right back in 2 minutes. We'll see you on the other side.
And welcome back. So, even though Thanksgiving came and went, right? I did my segment for Everyday Atmosphere a few weeks ago, just talking to the colleagues about what they like to do during the Thanksgiving season and how the weather plays on their Thanksgiving Day plans. So it's kind of fun to talk to everybody and see what they had to say. So check it out.
Yeah, it is fun. Let's see all the traditions.
Well, this episode of Atmospheric Insight in Everyday Atmosphere, I'm talking to a couple of my colleagues about the Thanksgiving holiday and how weather affects their plans.
Every year, my family and I make it a huge tradition to rush over to my mom's house down in the Central Valley in Visalia, where we gather around the dinner table for that is a Thanksgiving feast as one family here, while also playing some games along the way and creating some more lifelong memories. But when the temperatures get low and the snow starts coming down in the higher elevations, like in the mountain communities, my family and I make it a point to bust out what I like to call the unofficial start of tamales and champurrado season. Champurrado is like a Mexican hot chocolate, so we get to enjoy that. Some tamales as like an appetizer or a side, and of course with all the Thanksgiving fixings like the cornbread, the mashed potatoes, and of course most importantly the turkey. So that's how I spend my Thanksgiving every year with my family, and I'm hoping you at home get to enjoy time and of course a good family meal with your loved ones here ahead of the Thanksgiving holiday. Happy Thanksgiving all.
Normally what I do during Thanksgiving is I go to my aunt's house, my uncle's house. They live in a farm, and I would love to always be able to talk to the animals, get to play with them, get to ride a horse, sometimes play some football, but the weather will generally impact me if it's raining, and if it ever does rain, we'll always have indoor activities like football or singing or even just conversations through board games.
And Emily, I understand that you have some unique stuff that you do on Thanksgiving, and it really does pertain to the weather.
Yes, it does. Weirdly, for my family, it's actually making tamales. So back then, I could remember when I was back at home, my grandma used to make the tamales. She'll have a huge comal, which is like a huge pot that comes out, and the masa is all based on the temperature. So you can't be too hard, it can't be too soft. And I remember one time when we were making tamales, we made a switch to panes con pollo, and that's pretty much a loaf of bread with chicken in it, because it was too cold to need the masa, because you need to knead it. Masa is pretty much dough that you need for the tamales. And since then, we kind of just shifted from it. And every now and then we're like, should we make tamales this year? Should we make or panes con pollo, or should we make something else?
And if it is going to be cold, say on Thanksgiving Day or even the day before, do you plan to make tamales on different days so you can at least have that same tradition with your family?
Sometimes. What I remember is that my mom would help my grandma out every now and then. We would look at the forecast, ahead of the time, or sometimes it's a game time decision, where it's you wake up and you're like, okay, are we really gonna be kneading dough? It's really cold right now. Or we would rather make panes con pollo, which is more savory, it's more of a soup base, and so we shift to that. So it just depends on that day.
All right. I had no idea that this really went into it, so that's really fun to know. So thanks for all the insight there. Hopefully you make some good tamales soon, and I will ask, please bring me some, because I love them. Of course. Thank you.
Knowing you.
All right, thanks, Emily.
Of course.
Our family tradition is football for Thanksgiving, and this year is just going to be as fun because you know why? Hopefully it doesn't rain. Now, if it does, we got to go indoors. We watch a movie, we cook, we do a fun little indoor family activity, but nothing is like football. Both of my brothers play football. I tried, it wasn't for me. But I can get out to the field, at a nice park and have a good time. So I hope for families that are watching this, I hope you guys have a tradition like me where you get outdoors and you do something active, and hopefully the rain or the fog won't interrupt that this holiday season. Happy Thanksgiving 2025.
Bianca, thanks for joining us today.
Of course, Riley.
And you're going to share a little bit about your traditions and what you do and how the weather affects your family and what you guys do for Thanksgiving.
Yes, of course. I mean, we always love a comfortable, cozy Thanksgiving, right? But I will say my family were a little spontaneous. We always have the traditional Thanksgiving dinner. I will say when it comes to the holidays, though, we're always open to driving to the snow. We're Californians, right?
Okay.
We call it the snow. But if there's recent snowfall and the entire family's up for it, we'll drive to the snow, maybe have some fun in it, walk around, sled. So if someone is open to it, we'll just go and drive to the snow if we had some recent snowfall. So that's almost like an unofficial tradition that we have.
All right. Thank you so much, Bianca, for all your insight and that. And hopefully you'll get some snow for your Thanksgiving holiday.
Hope so.
Riley, very nice. Really fun to see the traditions and hear about what people do, things that maybe you do with your own family. Now looking forward to Christmas.
Right.
You getting a Christmas tree this year?
Yes, we did.
Oh, you got it already.
We went and picked it up. I went to a tree lot in Davis, and it was really fun. A little bit more expensive than what I thought it was going to be.
Okay, all right. So real tree, how tall?
6 foot.
6 foot tree?
Yep.
How much do they charge you for it?
$155.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh man.
$155.
What happened to the holidays?
I know. I was like,
That's
oh
so
man,
much money.
It was. And I was talking to a friend of mine. Well, it's one of my son's friend's dad, and they go up to the mountains.
Get a little permit, right?
Yeah, and they cut a tree out somewhere, and they only cost them $15.
Yes.
And I was like, we're going there next year.
Right, yeah. You bring an axe, I think, and you get a $15 permit.
Yeah.
You get to chop down your own tree.
Whatever it was.
More affordable, maybe more memorable for the kids.
I think we're gonna do that.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
Yeah, $155. I was like, okay.
And
woo,
yeah,
steep.
the fake trees are convenient, no doubt about it. But it's not the same. It doesn't have that smell. It doesn't have that feel.
I know.
All right, we'll get in. I'm sure we're going to hear more from some people here at the station about Christmas.
Oh,
Is that down the pipe?
It's coming. Yes,
All
it
right,
is.
Awesome. We'll be back in 2 minutes, and we're going to hear from forecaster Genevieve Melzer next. Welcome back to Atmospheric Insight. So we've talked about deep cold. We've talked about fog. We've talked about surprises here on the West Coast, traditions for Thanksgiving, looking forward to Christmas.
Yeah.
But now let's talk about estheticians.
Yeah.
Yeah, Riley, you ever go to an esthetician for anything?
I have.
Yeah,
I have
okay.
gone. I had a couple facials, I will admit.
Nice.
But
Don't
don't
treat
laugh.
yourself.
You have to, except I fell asleep.
Well,
I didn't really enjoy it as much as I wanted. Well, I guess I did.
Yeah, you relaxed.
Yes.
Okay. You relaxed. All right. Let's see what Genevieve has to say about how weather impacts estheticians. Ready?
Yes.
See it.
We talk about a lot how weather impacts what we wear, but it also impacts something we wear all the time, our skin. From dry winter air to summer humidity and everything in between. The weather can have a real impact on how our skin looks and feels. Today I'm at Pretty Please Aesthetics with lead esthetician Jacqueline Garcia to discuss how different weather conditions affect our skin and what we can do to get that healthy glow year-round. Let's go. As lead esthetician, what are your job duties?
With being a lead esthetician, I have helped curate different facials to help address all different skin types and skin concerns. And with that, I also have helped with a committee of picking products that we bring on, and I've been able to be a part of that as well.
What time of the year do you see an influx in your business?
Definitely in these winter, colder months, you see more people and you feel for them because they're coming in with problematic skin concerns, inflammation, redness, or a breakout, and all those sorts.
How does the weather affect people's skin?
Weathers go from like extreme temperatures. It can exacerbate what already is like underlying, whether that be like if you're dry already, it can make it more dry in the drier months, or when you're oily or acne prone, it can go towards that in the summer months.
What type of weather is the hardest on your skin?
I specified mine for Sacramento because Sacramento weather is very different. We don't have like humidity. It's very dry, either in the hot summer days or in the cold winter days. Going back and forth between very hot, extreme weather, like being outside in the sun during the summertime, and then going into a cold AC house or building whatsoever. Those two extreme temperatures can affect your skin.
What kind of skin issues do you see during cold, dry months?
I think the root is inflammation in the skin, and how that plays out into irritation, itchiness, dryness. Essentially, it's all the root from inflammation.
How do you deal with inflammation?
Helping with products that help build that barrier, that help address redness, help rebuild that barrier, help with that inflammation.
A common misconception when skin is dry is you need oil or lotion. What do you recommend instead?
A very light form of exfoliation, but also just hyper-focusing on repairing that barrier.
If you could predict the perfect weather for glowing skin, what does that look like?
It would be like 65 to 75 degree weather with the sun isn't too harsh. It's like not always out, but you can feel a little bit of warmth with a tiny bit of humidity. And I know this one's silly, but I would say like the less cars on the road that create smog would be also beneficial and ideal.
What is one skin myth you would like people to stop believing?
That using oil to hydrate your skin is not ideal for your skin at all. But it can cause so many issues, so much clogging. With that, it could lead into like inflaming, into acne or that sort.
That was such great advice. Thank you, Jacqueline Garcia, for sharing your weather and skin wisdom with us.
Oh, sorry, Genevieve. I just skipped a little bit too fast. But we heard the important part from the esthetician, right?
Mm-hmm.
That some things that we may consider to be healthy for our skin, probably not. Like the oils. I didn't know.
Yeah,
that was me. I made a mistake there.
I think all of us too. It's like you get dry skin, and you automatically go for the lotion.
Yeah.
Or you go for the products that probably have oil in them, that sort of thing.
That's what I thought.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because you do factor on how the weather just plays a role in your skin, how dry it is. And one thing that I'm interested in hearing too, and I guess, she tied in with this, but my hands during the winter get so incredibly dry and they get cracks in them. And that's my biggest problem. So, and I always try to lotion, that sort of thing, but man, my hands that's where I have my area.
Yeah, I think that's a very common problem.
Yeah.
Especially in places that are considered deserts, right? Where it's just very dry. And if we don't get rain, like it feels very dry here in the winter too.
Yep.
And I liked what she said about the perfect weather for your skin. It also seems like the perfect weather overall. 65 to 70,
right?
A little bit of humidity, less cars on the road, less smog, better air quality. What's not to like there, right?
Yeah. I guess everybody just needs to work from home, and then that problem will be eliminated.
Reminds me of COVID lockdowns.
Right.
I was still coming into work, but no one else was on the roads, and air quality seemed great, and traffic was wonderful.
Yes,
no
it was.
There. All right, thank you, Riley and Genevieve. Thank you for your contribution to this week's episode of Atmospheric Insight. We'll see you again next week, same time, same place.